Okay. Oh, we are live. Wow, I didn't see that. Sorry. Well, welcome to Panakal Podcast for Geeks, a show about good friends hanging out talking about the things we all love. Today our guest is Stephanie Brown. Do you prefer Stephanie Brown or Steph Brown?
Either works. Stephanie Brown, I guess.
Okay.
But you can call me Steph.
Stephanie and my co-host Andrew Sides. Sorry about that weird intro. I usually can see that 5 second timer, and I must have moved it in Streamlabs, so I didn't see it right away. Well, today we were just going to talk about you, Stephanie. We're going to talk about your art, your screenwriting. Apparently you're a cosplayer. I didn't realize that until just a second ago. And obviously you're a big nerd like the rest of us. So you put that right on your Twitter handle, which is great.
Yeah.
So let's start with illustration work. Have you done work for I noticed you put down you love D&D and Crit Roll. Have you done work for either of those IPs?
Well, I don't know if I can talk about this one because it hasn't.
Don't talk about anything that's getting you in trouble.
Yeah, I don't think it'll get me in trouble. I have done something for Critical Role. It's a merch item and
Cool.
It hasn't come out yet, so I don't know if it even will at this point because it's been a while, but it was a really exciting project to work on, so.
That sounds fun. I would love to do anything for those guys. How about D&D stuff?
No, I haven't done any official stuff for them.
Gotcha. D&D is one of those we talked about this last time on the show. Andrew and I just started. I've been playing for a while, but Andrew's just joined 2 campaigns. You were in one campaign, now you're in the second campaign with me as well. Which I think is
and I'm about to. For another friend of mine is about to start one with me in it as well.
There you go.
I'm
so
just
that's how it starts,
for all
man.
the weird ones.
Yeah, you play the weird characters really well, better than most people I've played with. So you really lean. I love it because Andrew, I said this before, Andrew just leans into his characters, and you're like, perfect.
Nice.
It's to the point where you're just like, I don't really have much to add to that. That's gonna be any funnier than what he just said. You know? But getting back to you, Stephanie, I want to talk about. So did you originally you're doing illustration work now? It looks like you're writing screenplays too. I was looking at your personal projects. All 3 of those are screenplays?
Well, I was originally writing them as screenplays. I've been doing that for a really long time.
Sure.
But I actually recently switched to writing them as novels instead because I want I want to make illustrated novels, I guess.
Right.
So it's a totally different way of writing than I'm used to. But it's really fun. I do still like screenwriting too, but I recently dipped my toes in novel writing, and it's been a lot of fun. So.
That sounds. I don't think I can write a full novel.
You wrote a book though.
I mean, I wrote a book, but I've been everything I'm writing is a short story, journalist, it's short journal blurbs. B, I also worked with in the first book I worked with 2 writers who helped me embellish all the stuff, and then this current book 2 I'm working with one of the original writers who's basically helping me be a better writer because I'm not a writer, I'm an artist, right? I'm learning how to be a writer, which I feel like D&D and stuff like that is helping me formulate better ideas for the stories. But then you it's one thing to write these stories down and then have your friends play an adventure, but it's another thing to put it in a book where people are that actually made sense when I read it, right?
Yeah.
That's where I struggle a little bit.
Stephanie, did you start primarily as an artist, so you're I just want to draw things, and then kind of over time all the creative interests kind of mesh together, and that's when you realize I want to write a novel and stuff? Or I have some friends that come at it where they're I have an idea in my head, quite express it yet, so then they start out obviously drawing it first, and then over time that gets to a point where it's okay, I feel confident now, I can write it and I can actually flesh this out into a more full thing.
No, I've always kind of been interested in telling stories. Even when I was a kid, I once wrote this short story for my mom for a Christmas present when I was a kid that involved Xena and mermaids and Christmas elves.
Solid.
So I've always been into writing. So, but art is definitely my focus because it's my career and where I make money from. So.
Yeah. That's kind of where I was when I was, initially. When I started Ancient One stuff, I've got all these notes that I wrote before, right? So initially when I started working on it, I was I'm going to write the book. I'm going to do the art. I'm going to do all I'm trained as a graphic designer. So I was I'll design the book too, and I'll do it all. But there's a point where you're just like, you got to hand some of this stuff off to people, right? It's like, please
Yeah.
help me make this thing a reality. Like
Mhm.
I have other projects on the docket. I'm working on a board game. I'm working on RPG, and I'm definitely not making it all myself because I can't.
Yeah.
So I do like the fact that you start out by writing fan fiction though.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's probably the
It's a
only
random
fan
thought.
fiction I've ever done, which is kind of funny because I know a lot of people get their start in fan fiction. And nothing against it. I think that's great. It's just something I've never really done except for that one.
Gotcha. Okay, so no more fan fiction after Xena and some.
I think I was like maybe 10 when I wrote it.
Dude, I mean, I know some 10-year-olds that don't do shit, so that's awesome. So can you talk a little bit about the personal projects? Like, obviously,
Yeah.
they mean a lot to you since you
Yeah,
got 3 of them. I can barely balance one.
Well, I've got more than 3.
Oh, how do you sleep at night, man?
I'm super interested in the Nethergate one that
that's
I
the first
saw.
one I saw.
Yeah.
That's the one I've been focusing on the most writing wise lately because it's the one that I have written the most drafts of as a screenplay, so I know it the best. So like I'm trying to adapt it to a book now, and I'm doing illustrations for it and stuff too. But I've done like 10 drafts of the screenplay, so it's actually a lot easier to write it out. But yeah, Nethergate is it's a ghost story that I came up with when I was in college. It's got some fantasy elements to it. It kind of starts out as like a typical haunted house story where this young woman moves back into her parents' home after they unexpectedly die, and then starts experiencing weird supernatural stuff in the house. She meets a ghost hunter who happens to be at the town at the same time and kind of recruits him to help her figure out what's going on, and kind of learns that there's some weird connection with what's going on to this monument that's in the local cemetery called the Nethergate. So
that's cool. Got a little bit of a Cthulhu, not Cthulhu, Lovecraft vibe to it, which is kind of neat with the investigator and stuff. I like that.
Yeah.
Andrew and I like Lovecraft, so I think that would pull us
I
in.
got a Cthulhu shirt at Comic-Con, so yeah.
There you go. I mean, it's like Lovecraft is one of those guys, whenever you bring him up, you're like, I like his writing, I don't have to like the person, right? Like, it's hard.
Exactly.
People are like, how do you like this guy? He did this. I'm like, I get it, man. I'm like,
well, then the other project that seems more, even more within that vein is Rift Raiders, from what it looks like. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of a cosmic horror adventure. I like to describe it as like a combination of Lovecraft and like Brendan Fraser's The Mummy. So it's got the whole
cool
adventure elements, but with the darker cosmic horror twist to it. Yeah.
I mean, if you adapt them into novels, then you can just kind of reverse engineer them into a screenplay again, right?
Yep. Yeah. Basically.
That sounds like a cool thing to do, man. I'm like laser focused on just this one thing, and you're over here like with 3. You're like, do you ever hear about how Isaac Asimov used to write? Do you know this?
I don't know this.
So he was like a physicist, right? I think by his studied physics, and he was a mathematician or whatever. But he would write, Foundations and all those books. He would leave his house. He got divorced, by the way, and I'm not surprised because he would leave his wife for hours on end during the day. But he would go to an apartment that he rented that faced a brick wall. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but this is what I've heard. He would have 3 typewriters set up, and one would be like a sci-fi book, one would be like a fiction or whatever, and the last one would be nonfiction. So he'd be typing about like whatever, Foundations, and then the other one would be like whatever fiction book he's working on. I can't think of. He's written like 450 books, right? So I can't remember them all. He's got like the most books ever written by any author, I think. And then the last one would be like some form of nonfiction. Like he's got a really good one called Extraterrestrial Civilizations. You can probably find it for like $5 or $10 on Amazon. It's an awesome book. Basically he's trying to prove to you why other life has to exist other than us, because we cannot be the most intelligent things out there. It's impossible. I forgot why I went there with this.
His writing methods.
Oh, because this is what Stephanie reminds me of Asimov, because Asimov is writing all these projects at the same time. He didn't focus on he didn't say I'm going to finish this book first, and then I'll jump to this book next, and I'll jump to that book. He was literally the reason he had those 3 typewriters is he would write till he didn't know what to write about that book, and then he just looked
and
over
then just
and
moved to the next one.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then he would write there till he couldn't figure it out and jump, and he would be like there. That was like his you'd be there for hours just doing this back and forth,
You
back
know,
and forth.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if either of you work that way, but I kind of do it here and there, depending on freelances, really demanding and whatnot. So, but I do also know a lot of other artists do it where you typically have like 2 to 3 projects at least going on at any given time. So it's kind of like if you hit a wall with one, you don't have to like grind on it and try and force
Right.
your way through. You can just say like, "Cool, I'm going to walk away from that. I'm going to do this one for a little bit."
But it's
Mhm.
still,
I
I feel
imagine that's
like,
the same philosophy.
I mean, I do that, but I feel like it's still, in my case, I'm still dealing with something in the same, with my own stuff still. I don't do a lot of freelance like you do.
I mean, even if you change gears a whole lot, like say if I'm going from like illustration work to ad work, which
Sure.
are like two different beasts entirely, like yeah, in the back of your mind, you're still kind of like percolating those ideas in the back of your head. Like your subconscious is like trying to work it out while you're focused on something that your conscious brain can more easily process and digest and take apart.
That's true.
But Stephanie, I was actually curious because I don't know too many people that have done it, like writing both a novel and writing a screenplay. Have you found like the differences, the differences between them challenging, or like,
Yeah.
I guess yeah, like what are the what have you found like the strengths and weaknesses between each medium for that? Because they are two very distinct mediums, even though they're both written word.
Well, for screenwriting, and this was kind of the reason why I was focusing on it for so long, is because it's a very visual medium. Like even though it's written words, like it's focusing on what you, the audience, will see and what the dialogue is. And you don't have to go into the mind of your characters as much. You don't have to describe things as much. Which is, I guess that kind of works for me in a way because when I think of my stories in my head, I see them as movies. So it was a lot easier for me to kind of get them down. But also, they also work as like outlines too. So when I'm adapting into a book, I get to go further into the details of the place that I see in my head, but don't need to go into too much in the screenplay. So there's a lot more uh, depth when you're writing a novel, basically, as far as detail, and you get insight in the character and stuff like that. So it's definitely a different way of writing, but it's fun. So,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's what
yeah. I
kind
guess.
of. Sorry, go ahead, man.
No, I was gonna say. I guess I didn't consider it like that because yeah, like a screenplay, every page is probably a minute or something like that is usually the go-to.
yeah.
Whereas like a novel, you can kind of like George R. R. Martin, like he could spend several pages just talking about food. You're like,
Yeah,
oh Jesus,
yeah,
this
yeah,
is
and
like
that's
a two
Yeah.
second shot in the show.
and
Yeah.
that's what I was trying to, like I was saying, is like that's, I think, one of the things that kind of like deterred me from working on novels, because like I didn't want to, like, I was not good at writing the detailed information so you can like
Mhm.
visualize that thing, right? Like now,
Yeah.
um, the writer I'm working with, Darren, he's super good at this. Like he will take what I'm saying and I'll be like, hey, I need you to do this. I need you to make this look like, I'll literally give him something I wrote and I'll be like, this has got to sound better than what I just gave you. Like, what did I miss, right? Like, and sometimes
Mhm.
it's just details. Like I didn't describe the thing a little better. Like I described it to the degree I thought it sounded cool. And if you
Mhm.
and I were sitting down and talking about the thing, you'd be like, "Oh, that sounds great." But as
Yeah.
a reader who wants to buy this book, they need more information, right? Because not everything is, the book doesn't have illustrations for every page. It's like,
Yeah.
so like some things need detailed descriptions. Like
Mhm.
he wrote a space battle in there, which I was like, this is phenomenal. In my head, I was like, just have these ships fight and one gets away, like. But
Yeah.
but in between that, I was like, all the specific things have to happen. And if you own the book, you know what I'm talking about, Andrew. I think you own the book,
Yeah.
but I was like, these specific things have to happen. So I have like these like plot points, right? I guess, which you know what that's all about.
Yeah.
So
Reminds me
like,
of
One of
like oh wait, hold on real quick. I was gonna say like that kind of reminds me of I don't know if you guys either of you ever read like Alan Moore's comic strips at
comic
all.
strips. I didn't realize he actually did comic
No,
strips.
no, not the strips. The scripts. Can't quite
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
pronounce it
yeah,
that
yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah. So like most comic scripts are more or less like a kind of a screenplay thing, right? Like you get to you'll get to one part of the page and then they'll be like, oh, panel 1, they fight. And it's like, cool, just leaving it up to the artist, figure it out.
Right.
I'm not going to waste words on this.
Mm-hmm.
There's panel, he'll be like, right, in this panel, I want a low angle shot. The rain is coming down. There's blood in the gutters. Batman, he's overhand. He's about to uppercut Bane. And this whole, like, most comic book writers, when they do it, it's like one panel, it's like maybe 2 or 3 log lines. That's about it.
Yeah.
Really quick, to the point kind of thing. Alan Moore, it's like a good paragraph and a half to describe one panel. And he's like, cool, next panel.
Well, the dude
another paragraph and a half.
Have you ever seen him give the dude's crazy. Have you ever seen him give an interview?
No. It's interesting that it's like he's basically taking like a novelist approach to something where it's kind of like.
Well, that's why, like, when they did
he's
all the graphic novels he's done, like Watchmen is a prime example. They didn't even have to like rewrite anything. Like, they were like, oh, storyboards, here, it's all right there. He's like, I already, because he told the artist exactly what to draw in each panel, like the way Andrew's describing it, probably, right? And that dude like lives in I remember reading about him. He lives in like a castle with no internet, and he did an interview. Do you remember the show Heroes?
Mm-hmm.
Which was great.
Yeah.
Season 1 was amazing. The rest of it sucked.
Yeah.
But I'm sad about that show. I really, really enjoyed it. But the end of season 1, spoilers, so anyone who hasn't watched it yet, you should have already. When the guy takes off into the sky and his brother explodes, remember? Alan Moore went on this rant about how anyone who should know that a ground explosion is much less destructive than an air explosion is much more destructive. And then he went on to describe it like the atom bomb. Like, it never actually hit the ground. It went off before it hit the ground. And then he added, I heard about this thing called Google. You can type stuff into it and it gives you information. It'll tell you this information. And I was just sat there like, what the fuck is happening right now? And then later I realized he has no internet. He lives in a castle in like Scotland by himself, apparently. Now he's like a weird, like, I'm going to say it wrong because I don't know what it is. I can't tell if he runs orgies or a sex museum. Something weird like that.
No, he's just a wizard.
Anyone watching can correct me because I don't remember what it is.
Or, no, he's Wiccan?
Oh, Wiccan.
No, I can't remember exactly what he's.
Whatever it is, he's very like into that now.
He is some practicing, like, lack of a better term, practicing occultist, because I can't remember exactly what it is, like if it is within Wiccan or if he's a different branch or something.
Also, Stephanie, is that your front door? You just leave it open?
No, it's my back door.
Oh. I won't leave shit open in this house.
No, I'm on a 3rd floor apartment. I'm pretty safe.
Oh, okay.
But my dog can go out there if she wants to. So
gotcha.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
My wife we used to live in that, when we lived in the high rise, she would just leave the door open to the condo sometimes. I'm like, don't leave. I mean, we live in a high rise, but random people can just walk in and out of here, man. What are you doing? I forgot what I was going to ask you. Oh, we were talking about San Diego Comic-Con. And I mentioned that it'd be nice to hear perspective of someone. It's like everyone here has heard me talk about it, but I work the show, right? So I don't get to like go walk around. Like my first year there, I was a volunteer helping another artist, so I was able to move around a little bit. But instead of like getting in lines and doing all the cool stuff, I spent time promoting my product. And then every year since, it's been like not really. The only time I get into anything is when a friend will like this year I got to go see some of the stuff in the back of Funko because one of my friends was working with them and he was doing an interview or something, so he like invited me back there and I got to see some cool. I didn't get anything for free though. I thought I'd get some free Funko Pops. At least a Conan Funko would have been nice, if he still does that. But you said you were there this year. It felt pretty busy, right? It felt just about as busy as 2019.
I don't know. I feel like some of the crowds were lighter than usual. I mean, it was still busier than I was expecting, but there were definitely a lot less people milling around in like the more crowded areas. And there were a few hallways I went down where there was like maybe a dozen people top.
Oh, really?
Like,
okay.
That sounds surprising for San Diego.
I mean,
and like lines were not terrible. So yeah.
I mean, they got rid of like I missed. So my booth is right across from where Mike Mignola used to be. He didn't show up this year. But a couple rows behind that is the main aisle, and then like behind that is like the WB stuff. So they used to always have like the Supernatural one was the big one, right? Like they would show up and they'd be on that top stage looking down at the fans, and then They'd have that round table of TV screens, and then they would do signings there, right? And I'd be like,
Yeah.
I'm literally like 100 feet from this thing. I'm like, I can get over there and get in line and get some autographs. And no, it never happened. It was just chaos in there. And this year there was nothing. So I was like, oh, so I guess that part felt a little light.
Like, you mean like WB didn't show up that year, or
this year they didn't set up anything this year, as far as I could tell.
Really?
So yeah, so like that thing will go off like every hour. What's that?
Oh, there were a few big names missing.
Yep. I heard Marvel and DC were going to back out. Was Marvel there?
Oh, really? I think they were.
Yeah, I think Marvel and DC were going to back out, and at the last minute they were like, we'll be there. But there was a huge thing on the internet about how they were going to back out.
I was going to say, if they back out, that's the equivalent of like, you know, how all the game companies just almost collectively at the same time kind of realize like, hey, we don't have to do E3. We could just announce everything online.
Yeah.
after they saw Nintendo do it and Nintendo was fine, they're like, wait, we can just do this too.
Which sucks, right?
Well, now it sounds like E3 more or less has become this weird, like they're not really sure what they want to do with it yet.
Well, they made it.
I do wonder if like some of the comic conventions are going to be like that if some of the bigger companies kind of pull out.
Well, E3 used to be, when I first used to go to E3, which is, you know, years ago, it used to be you can only get in if you were in the industry or you knew somebody from the industry, like your dad worked for like Sony or something, right? Like it wasn't like you couldn't just go online and be like, here's $100 for a ticket, I'm on my way. They'd be like, what do you do for the industry? Like mainly 80% of the people in there with you did something. Like I had a graphic design company, so I used that as my ticket in, right? And then it's later years, my friends and I started a app. We were making an app, so we started our own company making apps for Android. So we used that as a way in, right? Because it was a disc golf app, so it was still kind of like a video game thing to them. But then they opened it up to the public, and I think when they did that, it turned into like hot garbage. Mainly because you got like all these gamers there who are just there to complain, you know, who aren't enjoying the experience because it doesn't feel exclusive anymore. Anyone watching, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how I
was going to say, I think maybe part of that was they allowed public access because I think it was starting to shrink a little, and they were a little scared they were going to lose it. Yeah, and it just kind of went that way. So yeah, I have wondered if like, especially after COVID, if like some of the bigger comic conventions, mainly San Diego and New York Comic Con, are going to kind of end up that way in some capacity. If like the larger companies like Marvel and DC just say like, you know, we don't have to be here. We could just
I think they scared people by saying that, and then they showed up. So I was like, okay. But again, I didn't get to really like walk around this year, which sucks. But like I guess you're right in it not being as crowded, because I did notice I was able to like just walk through Funko, and normally there's a huge line of people waiting for tickets, right? The WB stuff, I used to try not to be in that. So because they were there, that booth wasn't just, it was used also for like Walking Dead when they were there signed. So it wasn't like specific to WB. I don't know, because Walking Dead is not, that's AMC. But like what they would do is there was a stage above on top of the TV screens where the actors would hang out. The screens would show a trailer, and they'd all come down, and people would just be waiting there with posters and stuff, right? And get signed. And every year I'd have to like leave that area before whatever started because it would get, for Supernatural, it was a bunch of moms. And I got caught in that crowd one year trying to get a photo for Tawny, a friend of ours, of the actors, and I was like, never again. I'm never going back there again. Because I didn't even get an autograph because there were a bunch of ladies there who weren't having it, you know. But I was trying to think, like, you know, like I used to, you know, Sideshow used to show up with a bunch of stuff, and they seemed okay this year, but not as cool as they do every year. I guess it was kind of, I mean, I guess everyone's coming off of 2019, right? So it hasn't been around in 2 years.
It was 2 years of nothing, so I kind of understand why a lot of even the bigger names were just like, we don't know what to do. I think part of it was because they probably didn't have enough time to plan for what they were going to do, because we didn't even know if it was going to happen until like March.
Yeah, it was a last minute thing. Yeah.
Like,
I was like waiting to hear, and then, you know, so I like I said, I share the booth with Brian, Vanessa, Lemon. So they were like, it's happening, and I'm like, oh, okay, let's see. And I fly to the show, so like my setup is kind of always based like, this is what I'm flying with. But this year I was like, I've got my book now. I want to bring my book with, you know. And then I had to figure out logistics of, I shipped it to their house because I'm like, I don't know what else to do. I'm gonna ship some. Oh no, I shipped the books to the hotel, and I put them in a suitcase and lugged them in with my friend Miles. I shipped my playmats to Ron and Vanessa, and I was like, "Can you guys bring them in?" But yeah, it was like that last. I don't think they don't care, right? They don't care if they're like, "Sorry, it's last minute." It's like, you gonna show up or not, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess you're right. I guess I was excited to just be back because in my head I heard, in my head I felt like it was gonna go away. And I did hear like if they did raise costs on all of us too. Like the booths cost more money, but I think that's just to stay afloat. Because a lot of shows went away in between 2020 and 2022, right?
Yeah.
Understandably.
Like just permanently, or
yeah, a lot of shows haven't like just couldn't stay afloat, so they went away. But shows like San Diego's so big. If it went away, it'd be like weird.
Yeah, it's like I think it's the biggest convention, isn't it? Biggest comic convention.
I think
at least in
WonderCon is under it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was gonna say, like, at least in the U.S., I'm not sure about, like, because I know Angoulême in France is kind of large, but I don't know if it's like San Diego large.
I was thinking about doing a show overseas. There's one called Jason Engel was telling me about one called Luca.
Oh yeah,
I've never heard of it until they mentioned it, and I'm just like a little like, Stephanie, have you ever done a show? That's a good question, actually.
Nope, I have not.
Any interest in shows?
Oh.
I mean, I don't know, maybe. Maybe sometime in the future, but I do kind of like just attending conventions as an attendee. So
yeah,
just so I can walk around and
peace out when you're done.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice because otherwise, like, if you're at a table, then like you look down your watch, you're like, oh, 4 o'clock, 3 more hours, and you're like, I'm like mentally spent.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I love about having. So I have an assistant now that occasionally will come work a show with me. San Diego, not so much; it's so small. But Justin was at like Kansas with me, and it was nice because I was able to like be like, I'm gonna take a quick walk. I'll be right back, and I could like go talk to my artist friends and then come back, and like. Because otherwise you're like behind the booth. Like Gen Con, we were behind that booth for like 10 hours plus. Yeah. I only left my booth for a bathroom break, and that was covered by a friend visiting the show who was not in it. He literally would walk over and be like, do you need me to get anything for you? I'd be like, yeah, I need some hot tea because I'm losing my voice. Because we were talking through masks the whole time.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm definitely losing my voice, and I really have to go to the bathroom. And he would just stand there for like, he actually made 2 sales while I was gone. So I was like, good job. So each day, and then another friend of ours, his son covers lunch. Like that's how I feel like dipping your toes in shows is good, depending on if you want to do it. I always tell people try a small show, and if you hate it, you'll know right away because it's a whole beast on its own. And
yeah, that's the whole thing of like that's kind of what I've decided is if I ever do a show, I'm gonna have somebody there to run it for me because I don't want to do it myself.
I mean, it's not a bad plan, man. Just go in there straight in with an assistant. The problem is some shows require you have to be there.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like so, like Gen Con,
like
you have to
be there. I just didn't want to run the booth.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah. Gen Con, like Kerm was gonna have somebody cover for him at Gen Con, but they told him the artist has to be there. Dragon Con art shows the same way. I was gonna send my assistants to like a couple small shows next year, and 2 of them said no, the artist has to be here. So I'm like, I was like, that's just kind of. How would you know if I didn't tell you? Like Gen Con, you could figure it out. There's only like 70 artists in there, right? It's not that big.
Yeah.
It's a small group of us. Dragon Con's the same thing. There's a small group of us, so you would know. Like, and anyone who knows me would be like, "You're not Alan." But like something like, I don't know, like Andrew's Comic Con in Florida. Like if you were to run one and you had like 150 artists.
MegaCon, outside of like a handful of people that know you, like they wouldn't know who you are.
So like if I sent my assistant, like you would never know. And if you did, I can just be like, well, do you want the money or not? Like so I'm trying to decide if I want to like send them to these shows and just be like, what is that? It's easier to,
I didn't know about that. I didn't know about that requirement for some of the shows because I know, like, going back to MegaCon, I do remember there was one artist that had basically sent a volunteer as like a sales rep for his booth, and like it was maybe it was because he was in the vendor side of things, he was able to do that.
I absolutely feel like if you're in the vendor hall, like Artist Alley, I get it, right? You pay a smaller fee to be in there, and they're kind of like, hey, we'd like the artist to be here because it's Artist Alley. But if I spend $1,000 on a booth at a show, I don't want to talk business this whole time, so I'm going to move away from this. But I should be allowed to say Andrew's gonna go work my booth because he's my assistant. I already spent $1,000, and maybe like we have a friend in our art friends group, Pui. He does like one show, and he sends assistants to 2 other shows sometimes. So he'll be working a weekend with me at a show, and he'll be managing 2 other shows somewhere. And I'll be like, you wild, but I can only imagine the stress of that because I could barely manage the assistants that are at the show with me, let alone at another show. But I was gonna move us away from this and talk about cosplaying because I don't really.
Oh
we've never had a cosplayer on the show.
Yeah.
So it seems fun. I can't remember the name of the. There's this one female cosplayer that's on my YouTube. She makes like a lot of stuff from Monster Hunter and stuff, but she's always like duct taping stuff to herself and then like writing on herself to see where like things are gonna go, and then she takes that duct tape off and builds these. What is it? It's not styrofoam. It's like a fiberglass or something, right?
Craft foam?
I think it's like craft foam or EVA foam.
EVA foam, I think that's what it is. Yeah. She makes full armor out of it. It's amazing. In my head, I was like, kind of want to do something like that.
I think I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember her name right now. I think it's like Kamui.
Yeah, she's got like short brown hair. She's cool. Yeah. Like all her videos are literally giving you all the tea. She's like, here's what I did. Knock yourself out,
Yeah.
So what have you cosplayed?
Well, I'm a kind of an amateur cosplayer. I don't put a lot of effort into it, but I've done I did a really intricate Keyleth from Critical Role back in 2017 at Comic-Con.
At San Diego Comic-Con?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, me and my friends, we did a whole Vox Machina group cosplay. It was really fun.
What? That sounds fun.
And then we played D&D by the pool at the hotel. That was also really fun.
I don't think I can convince my closest friends to cosplay as Crit Role characters. I don't think I even convince them to just dress up at a Comic-Con with me. So.
Well, all the friends that I go to Comic-Con with, like we call ourselves the Con family, but they're all cosplayers. A big chunk of the group is like a family, and they all do cosplay together. They do like a family cosplay almost every year. So yeah, they're all cosplayers. I'm probably the least experienced in it of the group.
Start somewhere, man.
Yeah. Let's see. This year I did a lazy Keyleth. I did a Poison Ivy cosplay, and then I did Mara Jade from the Star Wars books. So.
Oh, that's awesome!
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
How long have you been cosplaying?
I want to say 15-ish years, maybe 14 15 years. But like again, it's like once a year, maybe.
On kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Like Andrew and I just got these Jupiter printers, and I've been meaning to like in my head I want to make a Mandalorian outfit, costume, whatever you want to call it, ground down, because like we could print a full helmet in there, right? If we wanted to, we could print the whole Mando helmet in there, I think.
Yeah, I think you'd have to print it in like maybe 2 or 3 parts, but you could do it.
Okay, I was under the impression I could print the whole thing, but either way, that's more than you can do. Like it doesn't have to be in pieces like that many. And I thought it'd be cool to like once I get the hang of it. I think because like I also have a friend who's in the 50. You know what the 501st is?
Yeah.
So he's in the local 501st, and he was like, if you build your own costume, that's their rule, right? You can't just buy a Mandalorian outfit online and be like, I want to join the 501st. You have to actually make your own costume, like ground up. So I was like,
and it has to be accurate to one of the films, if I remember right, too. Like it can't just be like you can't be like an amalgamation of things, or I think that's like a ranking or something within it, where it's like if it's just like a generic stormtrooper thing, it's like cool, you're like the lowest rank on it.
Well, they have a whole website.
The more screen accurate it is, the higher rank you are.
Well, they have some websites that the Garrison has that has like here's the build, right? Like you want to be Boba Fett, here's 5 different helmets you can use if you want to make it and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay. But I like the foam I was telling you guys about because it feels like it'll be lighter than resin. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's the I in high school I kind of tinkered around with it because like I never like considered cosplaying, but there was like a point where I was like, oh, I'm gonna build like a whole samurai armor out of this EVA foam. I didn't get far. I got as far as like a shoulder thing, and that was it.
As much further than I
um,
got. So
but yeah, no, it's neat because like you can, if I remember right, you can heat it and shape form it that way, and then like once it cools, it'll hold the shape and everything.
Yep, I've got a heat gun.
Um, yeah.
those look cool, by the way. I've seen those. I was like, I wonder what it can do. I would. I can't imagine I'd do well with that thing in my hand.
With the
Mario
heat gun?
Jig thing is cool. Yeah, I mean, I had a glue gun accident once. That was bad enough. So
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, heat guns are way hot, way hot. Like mine is like 600 degrees or 1,000 degrees for your choice of
Jesus
temperature.
Christ.
But it's like,
Well,
it's a hardware tool, so it's meant for like stripping paint.
Mhm.
right, and we're using it on foam. So, like, let's
I
back
also
that.
used it on Warbler too because that's a thermoplastic. So when it's warmed up, you can mold
Oh,
it.
neat.
Oh,
So
and
I
you
was,
put it on the armor.
yeah. Well, I used it for building the Keyleth cosplay that I did back in 2017 because like I built like a corset that was supposed to look like it was made out of bark, and then I had like a
Mm.
gauntlet, and I actually made her staff out of Warbler too.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
yeah,
What
it
was
was pretty
that plastic again?
Warbler.
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 Yeah.
Write this
Sounds
down.
sounds kind of familiar. Yeah, I don't know if I've actually seen that. That's
I
neat
think
though. Like
probably,
that's neat that you can mold it around when
yeah,
it's
once you
heated
heat
up.
it up, just don't heat it up too much because it'll burn you. But yeah, it's pretty
Cool.
cool. And it's
Good to
lightweight
know.
too. So
Hmm.
That's the key, right? That's like in my head. I was like, if I ever did any kind of cosplay, I would want to make sure it's lightweight because you got to walk around in that for hours.
yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be
Yeah.
miserable.
I also made the Keyleth crown and antlers out of it. Unfortunately, this was when I was still living in LA, so I drove down to San Diego and the crown broke in half on the way down.
Oof.
Oh no.
Yeah, I didn't put
You
enough
should just
support
worn
inside
it the whole time you're driving. Okay.
Yeah, it was right on the pressure point too, where like the crown comes down like this. And so yeah, that was where I had to we spent a few hours trying to piece it back together so it would hold for an entire day while I was wearing the costume.
Oh man.
Didn't super
I
glue
mean
didn't
it
fix that?
nope.
Oh,
We did not fix that. I think we actually wound up using thread to hold
okay.
it together as well as some epoxy.
Duct tape.
But yeah, it was definitely kind of bowing down like this by the end of the day.
Oh.
I guess I was thinking in my head, I'm like, if you ever been to a costume party, I guess you've low key cosplayed something, right? Like,
Mhm.
but not to a convention. I've never worn anything to a convention. Everyone's always like, how can you don't dress up? I'm like, I guess I wore elf ears, but the guys who sell it were at the show with me, and I
Yeah.
called them out saying, I noticed you got a lot of elf ears for white people. You got elf ears for colored people, and he was like, yeah, and I was like, show me, and he showed me something where I was just like, that doesn't look like color. It was still too light skinned, but he actually
Mhm.
took a photograph of my ear, colored the ear later, and actually they're right here because I was gonna bring them to LuxCon, but I gotta recolor them. But these are the ones they made. You could tell they're still a little too light, but
Mhm.
he walked me through the process, and I was like, cool. So I kind of like that. That stuff's really light, by the way. I always forget I forgot I was wearing those when I won the award at DragonCon. I was still wearing those damn ears. So all the photos of me with my award are with me with elf ears on. It's funny later, But I remember I was at dinner and Priscilla Kim was at dinner with me, and she's like, "Are you aware you're still wearing elf ears?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Why didn't somebody tell me?" Um, are you planning on doing any other shows this year other than San Diego's obviously done? You don't go to New York obviously because that's happening right now.
Yeah, that's happening right now. No, I don't have any more plans for shows this year. I don't think I would have time even if I did.
You got that much freelance?
I have a lot of freelance, but I also have my calendar project I'm kind of slim
I
trying to
saw
finish.
that.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about that because like I in the Rusty we're part of a Discord for specific
Mhm.
artists, and one of our friends is running a calendar project, and the issue I decided I'd help her with it, much to my fault because I was like, I should not have volunteered for this, but I noticed the problem is like if you don't get it out at X time, then the dates. How do you get your dates and stuff set? Because you gotta like it changes every year. So if you don't get it out by the end of the year, you're not going to get it out for 2023, right? Or is that your goal?
That's the plan.
Are you going to Kickstart it or just run it on your website?
I'm just going to run it on my website. I'm just going to do pre-orders and kind of use that to gauge how many I need to order.
Sure.
So pre-orders are actually opening in like a week from Tuesday, basically. So
you got a pretty big platform. I'm sure you'll do well.
I was going to say, like, what's like your internal hard cutoff where you're like, if like you blow past this date, you're like, oh God, it's not going to happen. Just like physically because of deliveries and everything.
Well, I want to get it all done by early November. If I don't get it done by then, I'm probably still going to try to finish it just because, I'll have pre-orders at that point, so I need to fulfill those.
Yeah, you got people will be mad if they don't have the product.
I'm honestly surprised that even like early November can work. Like, it just seems to me like even for a calendar thing, just taking into consideration shipping logistics and stuff, like I always wonder like what the lead time on those things can be.
Well, I've been looking into several calendar printing places that just do like bulk calendar stuff and like kind of gauging how fast their turnaround is for producing the calendars and then their shipping. And the one that I think I'm going to go with is in Georgia, which is literally the next state over. So hopefully shipping won't be too long.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. You can go to Dragon Con if you're that close to Georgia.
I know. Wanting to go to Dragon Con, but it's so fast after San Diego Comic-Con. It's just busy.
Oh, I know. Trust me, I had a week to prep, and then I drove to ATL. So yeah, that's where so like we went. Initially, the idea was to do a 12-month calendar, and then we moved it to an 18-month calendar, hoping to give ourselves a little extra time. And then now it's like a year delayed almost. Mainly because if you don't get it done by X, then you're like, well, we got to keep pushing it to get this. So like, do you? I guess my question also is like, if you have a company that helps you make those calendars, I assume they put together make sure the dates are all correct on the right weeks and days.
I don't know about that yet.
You have to do that part yourself too?
I think so because it's a fully customized calendar. So
it's like your own font and graphics for it.
Yeah, I've looked to see if they had templates and I didn't find any that were like you can put your custom art in or whatever. Sure. So I don't know. I've already kind of started building the actual calendar pages too. So
cool.
Hopefully.
I'd be scared I'd miss a date. Or I know next year's February is a leap year, so don't forget that.
Yeah.
I'm almost sure of that. Okay, the other thing I was gonna ask you about, you worked on your YouTuber. I did watch some of your videos. You like to film a lot of everything, your life, which is cool. I never thought about doing that. It seems like a cool idea, but it also seems like I don't know what I'd talk about, honestly.
Yeah, I struggle with that too.
I mean, I started this podcast mainly because like my friends and I would be talking about random stuff, and I'd be like, that could have been a whole podcast for us.
Yeah.
Even if everybody doesn't like it, somebody might get something out of it, right? So, but I saw you filmed your I think I watched. There's one with you flying into San Diego at like the crack of dawn. I was like, Jesus Christ, that's too early for me. But you did it.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I actually filmed stuff from this past Comic-Con too, but I haven't even had time to edit any of it. It's actually all still on my phone. I haven't even moved it over to my computer to edit.
Oh, I don't edit shit. We don't edit anything. People always ask us if we record this stuff and then I edit it and then put it out. I'm like, no, man, that requires time.
Yeah.
It's easier just to be like that. I guess that's going live on air. Nothing crazy's ever happened. Except that one time we recorded for 40 minutes.
I was going to say, you lost 20 minutes of the show.
Oh, I lost 20 minutes of a show once because whatever Streamlabs is... It's not me. It's something Streamlabs did. I don't know. It cut off 20 minutes at the end of a show while we're in the middle of a conversation. That's a mystery. And then one time I actually recorded for 40 minutes with no audio. I mean, you can hear the guest and Andrew talking, but nobody can hear me. Welcome to live podcasting, I guess. Is there anything you want to talk? Any other personal projects you want to talk about? I pretty much asked everything I had on my list here. We can talk D&D and Crit Roll too, because that's exciting.
Yeah, we can talk about D&D and Crit Roll. I'm always down for that.
Are you caught up on Crit Roll? I'm
Yes.
behind. Oh, okay. I'm like 5 episodes behind now. I won't spoil it because something major happened like last week or the week before, and
It was a
I
few
had
weeks
to
ago.
like and I had to go into Twitter and literally put hashtag Critical Role spoilers as a muted word because somebody spoiled it. Like I should
Aw.
have seen it. People are gonna talk about it, but I didn't realize somebody would like outright just literally tell you what happened, and I was like, oh man, come on. Um, I still listened to it, right? I got through it, but
Mhm.
I was like, dude, I was doing so good. I don't know how people can watch it every week for 3 hours. I was trying my best to do that, and then I was like, I just can't. And then I was like, I'll just listen to it on a Friday night and then a Saturday and get it done. And then now I'm like 5 episodes behind. I just fell behind, which is
It happens.
I don't know how you guys are keeping up week after week, man. Like
Oh,
troopers.
I can work when I have stuff on, like movies. I almost always have movies or TV shows on while I'm working just for background noise. So I can have Critical Role on and still be doing work and stuff while it's on. But
Sure.
I also have a Patreon with a Discord connected to it, and we do a live chat during Critical Role every week. So it's
Oh
pretty
man, you
fun.
got patrons in there with you? That's fun. See, man, that's what we should be doing, Andrew. Like, we just like I would love to like I don't hang out with anybody when I listen to Crit Roll. I'm literally just listening to it by myself. I'm working. I don't like
Mhm.
I got friends who listen to it and they're just like watching it and not actually doing nothing else. They're literally just watching it live
Yeah,
Yeah,
in their
I
living
wouldn't
room.
be able to do that.
I was
I'd have
like,
to
you
I
got to
can't do
do
work.
that.
something else with your time. But they're like, they work, your standard 9 to 5, and then when they're done,
Mhm.
you know, they get together with their group of friends and they all just watch it live. And I'm like, sounds kind of nice. You're watching a 3 hour movie every Thursday.
Yeah, that's the thing though. That's like I love RRR or something like Lord of the Rings, or whatever, but I can't do that
Right.
every single week or every single night. Like that's a huge, huge mental task in my
It's
head.
because in the back of my head, and you guys are both probably the same. I'm always like, I should be working on this other thing. Like,
Yeah.
why am I sitting here? I don't know how often you guys take breaks, but whenever I do, I'm still like vibrating on everything I'm supposed to be
Oh yeah.
finishing. It's like,
I
Yep.
I I don't know I don't know like how you guys have handled your like work life balance, but I've gotten to a point where it I usually try and give myself like at least one free day where it's kind of like I can
that's
fuck
Saturday
off
for
on the
me.
weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's usually Saturday or Friday, like Friday evening or something. It's like cool. This is the time we're gonna watch a movie or something that we mean to
Hmm.
catch up on or whatever. Usually it's like we'll have something playing in the background while we're like gaming or whatever, like on the Steam Deck or the Switch or something.
Mhm.
Or I'll be like just doodling while we have like a movie rolling in the background.
I don't. Yeah. When it on my Saturdays, I don't do any. Like if I'm working, I'm working. If I'm out with my friends, I'm like, that's it. I'm not doodling or carrying anything with me. I just can't. But I
I mean,
still
I
have the thought in the back of my head of all these ideas I want to work on.
Mhm.
So,
a sketcher though, Alan. Like Stephanie, are you like a habitual sketcher, or are you kind of like work is work and then
No, I don't do a lot of sketching, but mostly just that's just because I'm always working on stuff. So I don't have this is weird to say, but I don't have the time to just doodle. I wish I did, but
that's
I
fair.
don't.
I've
I
also
mean, it's a
heard
good
some
thing that
people
you're
say like
busy.
I've heard some people say like they feel fulfilled enough with the freelance or whatever like work they're doing that they don't have that impetus afterwards to be like in my off time I also want to draw because I need to get something out. It's kind of like no, I had that filled by doing the all the work during the day, so I'm
Mhm.
good. I don't need to like keep doing that
Right.
right now.
Yeah.
So speaking of D&D, what
Mhm.
are you in a campaign at all right now?
I'm in a few different
Wow.
campaigns, yeah.
Where do you find
Uh,
the time?
Any
I
Spelljammer
schedule
or
it in. No,
Yeah, are you in
no
Spelljammer?
Spelljammer. Most of them are actually homebrew
That's
stuff,
cool.
so yeah.
We
But
just started our first Spelljammer one with a
ooh,
friend.
that's fun.
We'll see where it goes.
Very nice.
What do
Yeah,
you play?
I've got one with the online group that I've been with for I think almost three years now. Yeah, three
That's
years now.
cool.
And that one was the DM is a patron of mine. He's been a patron for a long time, and it was so weird how I got into it because I basically made up a D&D character. I wasn't part of any campaign at the time. I just made it and painted her and put it up on my Patreon. And that same day, he messaged me. He's like, "Hey, we're starting a campaign tonight. If you want to join with this character," and I'm like, "Yes, please."
That's cool.
Campaigns at all at that point, and I was like, I need D&D, please. Yes.
What's the character?
She's a half elven warlock.
That sounds dangerous.
I love playing warlocks. They're so fun.
I can't play warlocks. I just can't control them ever. They're super strong though.
Well, what was funny was I kind of built her to sort of be like the broody, traumatized type of character. She wound up being the mom of the group.
Oh, nice. Good luck with that.
Well, there's two like children characters in the game, so not her fault. She's got two kids to look after now. So
there's kind of a kid in our campaign, Ben's character. Yeah. So
oh yeah.
He also plays another in this campaign he's playing a what is that, a Haragon with the rabbit folk?
Yeah.
Which is in a kid version. And we have another campaign he's in with me where he plays this furblog giant, and he's basically a childlike giant. I'm like, man, I have to manage you there and here, you know. I just let him do whatever he wants though, because it's usually chaos, and I'm just like, oh well, that'll move us forward. I'm actually playing an artificer for the first time, and I didn't realize how hard they are to control. There's too many options.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like what you kind of mentioned that offhand when we were
setting up
for the game yesterday. Like
I didn't
what do you
realize
like
how much
like different like traits and stuff that you can pick, or
it's got like a ton of like abilities, and then I picked Battlesmith because in my head I was like, I'm gonna make all these cool gadgets, but then that has its own like. I'd have to show you my sheet. There's so many options on just like my abilities. I was just like, what the hell is happening with this character? So I don't know. We'll see. I did it on purpose because I'm always like, I'll just be a rogue or I'll be a bard. You know, I just play the basic characters, and purposely playing, reaching on these characters because I want to get better at. Like I just said, a warlock was really hard for me to control, right? Like, and I was just like, what if I was a warlock and I'd be forced to play the warlock and enjoy it? Not. You know, obviously I'm not going to play a character and I'm like, I fucking hate this. Why am I playing this character? That's no fun for you guys if you're in the campaign with me. So, I don't know. But Spelljammers, we'll see. It's a cool, I think it's one of those cool concepts that I knew about, and I'm glad they brought it back out. So, it's my world. What's your favorite type of character to play?
I definitely tend to lean more towards witchy themed characters. So like obviously warlocks. I just started playing a storm sorcerer Hexblood recently. So it's really fun.
Yeah, I never heard of that.
Yeah. They're kind of a newer, they're not even really a race, it's a lineage. They're categorized under races, but basically you can start off as any playable race, but you get altered by hag magic. So
hag, huh? We killed a hag in one of our campaigns. I hated that. That's gonna be cool for you though, because hags are wild. You like shapeshift and curse people and give them
it's not fully hags. It's just a little bit of a hag infusion sort of thing. But
I don't think I've ever heard of Storm Sorcerers. Do you know what book that's in?
I think it's Volo's. No, not Volo. I can't remember.
No worries, I can look it up later. I'll find it. Don't worry. It's that's my point. Like that's something like I'm playing in a campaign with a friend of ours, Aaron Miller, and I played Blood Hunter because I was like, what's the closest thing to a Witcher class? And I'm just like, I want to play a Witcher class just to see. And then they said, oh, Matt Mercer made this Blood Hunter class. So
yeah.
All right, let's look that up. And it was hard to control that too. But I got the hang because you can't like it's basically what Travis is kind of, right? You have to give blood to do an ability, and then like you basically damage yourself to make something crazier happen to somebody else. And I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
and you got to remember to do like 3 steps every time. And I was like, but it's
Mhm.
cool once it's like in play, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, so, and I wanted to play a gunslinger, but I haven't quite. Guns are a weird thing in D&D for me. I think like I haven't quite figured out the magic to that. Even though Mercer's given us pretty good um, stats on those guns, like the pepper box,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
you got to play a fighter class Andrew, and then when you reach level 3, you can pick gunslinger basically.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say like guns are weird and because I figured they would just be treated like thrown weapons or something, where it's like range.
It's
If
range, and
it's
they
in your
have like
line of
miss.
sight,
So
you can
like
hit it.
the character I'm playing right now with Andrew, I've got a blunderbuss, and
Mhm.
but it can misfire and stuff. But what I did with the DM running it is we charmed it. So every time I roll for an attack, we roll a d20, and then Jason, our DM, and I have a list of 20 things that can happen because it could fire off random. It could fire confetti if it misfires, basically. And
It's
we
like
did that.
do guns normally like I guess like guns in a like a regular plate, not counting the magic blunderbuss. That's
Yeah,
all
yeah.
that's going to be all over the place.
Well,
Like they can misfire or
right, because they're all like what do you call it? Like the pepper box is like a flint gun, basically, right?
Yeah, they're all kind of based off of older guns.
Right.
So, and those did
okay.
misfire a lot.
It's not like our guns with like a bullet and a chamber that you load and a hammer, right? Like it could
Right.
misfire. It could just be nothing. Think of it like old pirate guns.
Hmm.
Right.
That's exactly
Okay.
what it is. So that's the beauty of it, and also I don't know. It could be fun, if I can figure out how to work the fighter. Okay. So we're edging close on the hour, so I wanted to ask you if there's any specific projects you want to talk about, or anything else that I mentioned hobbies. You obviously have
Hmm.
a ton of hobbies, because I would say cosplaying is a hobby and D&D is a hobby. But is there anything that's your favorite, or anything specific that you
Um,
enjoy?
well, like I said, I watch a lot of movies when I'm working. I've gotten more into reading books over the last like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years or so.
What are
I'm
you
still
reading
not
right
a,
now?
I'm reading some spooky books for October.
Yeah, that's not a
Ooh.
bad idea.
Okay. Well, yeah. What kind
Yeah.
of spooky book?
Well, one of them is called Witches of Ash and Ruin, and it takes place in actually two of the books I'm reading right now take place in Ireland. But
Could be
it
creepy.
it's witches. There's some kind of impending darkness coming, and it's a kind of a YA witchy book, but that one's interesting. And then the other one is called The Call, which is, again, also takes place in Ireland, but it's sort of a little bit like the Hunger Games, where like the fae creatures that have been banished from Ireland thousands of years ago, have decided that they are tired of being banished and have started calling teenagers into the realm where they are and basically hunting them like Hunger Games style.
That
And
sounds
so,
cool.
like, yeah, and
Oh.
all of Ireland is cut off from the rest of the world. So they've just kind of focused their entire country on keeping teenagers alive when they get called, because every single teenager will get called at some random point.
Oh wow.
That's
Yeah,
creepy. That's cool.
yeah, it's creepy, and there's some body horror going on in it, but it's fun.
So not a young adult book.
Yeah.
Have
Well,
you read? Sure.
it's a
I
horror
like the
book, but
fact that you purposely picked horror. Like for October, what I do is I watch horror movies.
hmm.
Um, and there's usually my regular go tos, but then I've been trying to find. This is Andrew and I. You and I went through this last year, where I always try to find something new. Like I think the new Hellraiser comes out because I want to see that. But
Hmm.
like I watched like
That's
Trick or
like
Treat. I already watched.
next week, I think.
Yeah, it's next week. You
Yeah.
haven't. I don't know if you watch. You said you watch horror movies, right? So Trick or
Yeah.
Treat is an indie flick. I think that's one of my favorites. I watched that one already.
Yeah, Trick or Treat's good. I've got a little Sam Funko over on my bookcase
Oh,
over there.
cool. Yeah,
Nice.
that kid is creepy as fuck.
Hmm.
But like that's one of those movies when I first saw it, I was like, where is this going? And then you kind of see it all tied together, and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I
Did you
try to
watch?
watch
Did you watch Reanimator, Alan? I
the old
rewatched that
one.
like at this. There's only one.
Okay, I didn't realize it. I thought you were asking as if they rebooted it. I have not seen
No, like
Reanimator in years.
It
Maybe I'll add it
deserves
to
a
the list.
rewatch.
I'll add it to the list. Don't tell me to watch Max and Me though, or whatever that is.
Like, Milo? No.
Milo,
I got
that's your like
Ben to
go-to.
watch it. There's at least one person that watched it. That's
Stephanie,
enough.
have you seen Milo?
No.
You should do yourself a favor and watch it at least once.
Okay.
It's on YouTube.
Right.
So like when I was in college, like I remember one time a bunch of us went to Blockbuster one night. It was around like this time of year, whatever, that we did it. And yeah, we saw this movie, like, you know how Blockbuster was, where it's like the very bottom shelf was usually like the really like off market movies where you're kind of like, ooh, this, I don't know the quality of this. Milo is definitely that. It's like, oh God, how to describe it?
It is like a B flick.
Creepy kid slasher flick, but the creepy kid is actually, no, I'm not going to say that because it'll spoil it if you
don't
watch
spoil
it.
Let her enjoy the.
Yeah,
let her
no,
go through the same horror process we went through for this one.
Yeah, it's I don't think it's a terribly movie, but or at the very least, like the twist at the end, you're kind of like, what the hell? Like, I just sat through this entire thing for this.
Yeah, Andrew had us.
Like,
Andrew talked it up.
LLC. I have the same reaction at the end.
Which one?
Hell House LLC.
I haven't seen Hell House. I've seen Hell House, the original Richard Matheson one.
Yeah, I just read the book.
Good, right?
Hell House. Like, I didn't really
Richard
like
Matheson's Hell House. That book made me scared of my own house when I was a kid.
I found it scary for like the first third of the book, but then it just kind of went downhill from there. So yeah,
I'll agree with you on that. Yeah, it felt a little bit like he got bored and he was like, nah, I don't know what to do anymore.
It kind of became a parody of itself.
Yeah.
And I just didn't really care for it.
Matheson is like one of those writers. I really enjoyed his writing. So that book was like, I remember reading that book. I'd be in the living room and everybody would go to bed and all the lights would be off. And I'd be like, ah, shit. Yeah. I'm still sitting downstairs, you know. I'm trying to think of the other movies I have on my list. Hellraiser's on that list. Halloween, I'm always like half and half. Critters is on that list. I haven't seen Critters. But yeah, so October is my watch scary movies month.
Yeah.
Book-wise,
you should watch House LLC. I actually, that one got me a little creeped out during most of it because it's really good at building tension. And I actually don't care at horror movies hardly ever. So that one creeped me out for a bit. It was just the end kind of jumped the shark a little bit. But
I'll add it to the list. Yeah, the only thing I don't watch is like gore. I hate
like torture porn.
Torture porn. Yeah, like I don't like the Saw movies. I don't like the Hostel movies.
Because they're usually
you know what I really
like
like is oh shit, what's it called? The Conjuring.
Oh yeah.
I still think that movie is. They made a bunch of spin-offs from it, and they're Annabelle's creepy as fuck, by the way. But they made a bunch of other like spin-offs which are okay. But that first one, man, I'm like, this is. I like movies like that because there's only like 4 or 5 sets really, and then just really good writing and acting. Right? They don't like. Take you all over the place. There's like they're all. It's mainly all happening in that one house, and you're like, this is cool.
Yep. Yeah.
It's a fun house.
I like Insidious too.
Oh yeah.
That one actually got me a little bit when I saw it in the theater for the first time. I went during the day, but I was like one of maybe 5 other people that were in the theater. So like that one shot when the demon like is
it's like standing right behind her. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm lifting my feet up because like
my friend kicked the seat in front of him, and there was a dude sitting in it. I remember, and he flew out of his chair, and I was like, why, man? like, but that was a good reaction, right? So
yeah,
that scene scared the shit out of me when I first saw it. And I saw it at night with my friends. I was like, no, I have no business watching this.
Yeah.
I liked that movie because the whole time you had no visual on the thing. And then you get that visual and you're like, I didn't need that,
Yeah.
So, the spin-offs were, they're not bad. They're not great. You could have just left it.
Yeah. Agreed.
Book-wise, I haven't read a lot of horror books in a while. I'm reading like, I'm trying to catch up. So I'm reading like Sam Sykes' 7 Blades, and I just have Nona the Night. Have you read Gideon the Night?
I haven't, but I've been recommended a bunch.
Oh my god,
so
you love it.
I'm gonna read that soon.
Yeah, so I'm reading the 3rd book of that in the series, but I haven't read any like really young adult books in a while, except my friend gave me Chuck Wendig wrote a book called Grim and Dust. Dust and Grim. It's about a kid who like basically inherits a mortuary, but it's a mortuary that's where for dead people, right? Mortuary.
Yeah.
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 Not a cemetery, a mortuary, but it's like a mortuary
Yeah.
for monsters essentially.
Oh.
And then that's the whole. It's got a little bit of a Neil Gaiman graveyard book vibe to it, mixed with some like fun, like I don't know, like hocus pocus style writing. And Wendig's a great author, so Wendig, I think his last name is Chuck Wendig.
Wendig,
yeah. Another book by him I'll recommend real quick is called The Wanderers. If you haven't read that, it's cool.
I've seen that one floating around. I haven't read it yet.
Apparently the second book's coming out in like a week or two, and I was like, oh, I kind of wish he had left it with only one book, because I'm always scared when they make a part 2 and you're like, you might fuck this up, you know?
Yeah.
If he's listening.
There's one author I've read a few of this year. She's got a few horror books that were really pretty spooky, and you blast through them because they're really easy to read. But T. Kingfisher.
T. Kingfisher.
Wait, that name sounds
really familiar.
Yeah, her real name is Ursula Vernon, and she actually used to be an artist too, but now she writes books, and they're really good. So
T. Kingfisher. Oh yeah, here Ursula Vernon.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I feel like I've seen any of these books, or does she have a series that you recommend?
I haven't read any of her series,
books.
but like The Hollow Places was really good. The Twisted Ones was really good. I'd recently just read What Moves the Dead. That one was a pretty short one, 150 pages, 58 pages, something like that.
All right, I'll add this to the list.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, we're a little over time.
Okay.
I hope you had a good time hanging out.
I did.
If there's anything else we want to talk about, we can talk about it. Otherwise, we'll probably just invite you back and talk about more cool, nerdy stuff at some point. Maybe you can
happy to be back.
Maybe we can have you back when they reveal whatever secret project you're working on for Crit Roll. We'll all buy it.
I hope they reveal it at some point.
I feel like they just have like a, track on like when certain things will get released. So we'll put it.
Yeah.
It seems like everything they make happens at one point or other. I mean, like I've got Munchkin by them, for Christ's sake, which is like, you know what I really want from them on the side note is that Clue game, but I don't want to spend $40 on it.
I want that too.
They have a Crit Roll Clue. I was just like, I want it, but I was like, $40 is too much. Like this, I've got Munchkin. If you ever play Munchkin, this is fun.
Yeah, I've got that. I have a whole like little Critical Role, like I guess it's kind of a shrine over there. It's like posters and art and all the Funkos and stuff.
I just started buying the shirts. I didn't realize how comfortable they were.
Oh, they're so comfortable.
They're so comfortable. I bought one. I was like, I'm gonna buy the rest of these.
Soft.
They're expensive. They're 100% cotton, man. So if you don't know how to wash your laundry, you're fucked. But
high quality.
So I want them all. I just can't spend money on them.
I know they're two newest releases. I'm just like, I want both of them, but that's too much.
I bought the only thing I didn't like that I bought was what I thought was a hoodie, and it was like a thin hoodie, and I was like, no. I live in Chicago. It's cold here. I want a hoodie. Like, I don't want a thin hoodie. I want a hoodie. This thing should be like made from wampa skin, like.
Was it the Mighty 9 hoodie?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought it was like a really thick hoodie, but it looks weird on their website, and it's like it was super thin. I was like, I can't wear this.
I think it actually said it was supposed to be a light hoodie, so because they do have other ones that are actual hoodies, so
right. Yeah, but their description of a light hoodie is like t-shirt light.
Yeah, it's basically t-shirt material.
So. All right, well, I'm gonna round us out of here, and then thanks for everybody who watched. Our next guest is next week is Nikki Dawes, who has done stuff for D&D as well, and Crit Roll, I think. Convinced her to get on. So, all right, give me a second to take us offline, and I'll be right back.